Thank you, Caroline. I think the first line is thank you, Caroline. There it is. And it's just like 20 seconds.
Are you the one that got stuck in like New York or something?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I remember when you faced down here for the morning.
Dude, that was almost a year ago, which is crazy.
Any particular way you want this shot set?
Just kind of like, yeah, a little bit wider. Yeah, that's perfect. Then they can zoom in and post or whatever if they want to.
All right.
Should I be centered maybe?
We are rolling.
All right, cool. I don't see the prompter.
Oh, my bad.
No. Cool. Y'all ready? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Caroline. That's right. Fans have been voting, and the results are in. First off, a huge thank you to Stephanie Quayle, Lucas Hogue, and Olivia Lane for being such great sports. But the winner of Nashville Insider's Country Costume Contest is Lucas Hogue. That's right. The man who literally thought of transforming into a deviled egg took the crown. A big congratulations, Lucas. Happy Halloween, everybody. Caroline, back over to you. Can I just do it one more time for safety and then?
Sure.
Cool. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Caroline. That's right. Fans have been voting, and the results are in. First off, a huge thank you to Stephanie Quayle, Lucas Hogue, and Olivia Lane for being such great sports. But the winner of Nashville Insider's Country Costume Contest is Lucas Hogue. That's right. The man who literally thought of transforming into a deviled egg took the crown. A big congratulations, Lucas. Happy Halloween, everybody. Caroline, back over to you. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Painting's anchor 1, she'll be anchor 2.
Can you push it? I can't get it. I had to get another one yesterday. My screen froze. I can't push it. Volume all the way down.
It's not going down. I can turn it up, but it won't go all the way down.
Can you
Just
turn
put
it
it
off?
outside or something. Turn it off. Just turn it off.
Where's your power button?
Oh, right there.
This one? Nope, that's...
Oh, it shows.
I have problems with mine sometimes trying to turn it off. But I don't have
Nope,
any
that's Google Map.
Well, let's just put it on sound and silence it then. Let's just do it that way. Go to settings and silence it. Glasses on, trees. Volumes. Now we go.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, and I want you to make sure that you get this thing out.
Yes, sir.
I want to use it now. What we're doing here. Now,
Alright, let's see.
the first segment was background, education, experience. Talk about yourself.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Early as you wish to, just say what you wish to talk about, and that'll be a 6-minute kind of discussion.
Okay.
With you doing most of the talking, looking at me, and keeping that chair still.
Remember, cheer still. Okay. Okay, because it swivels.
Yeah, we'll just keep
Dr. Haynes, let's turn your mic on.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Alright.
Okay, now we got a hot mic. Now, Mr. Trump know about a hot mic, don't he?
You know it. You know it. He's been burning it up.
That's right. Okay, I am recovering, fighting substance abuse, and so in that last part will be 10 minutes and impact on
I need
society.
these glasses on. I need to take them off.
Yeah, you can take them off.
Yeah, I'll just
if
take
you
them
don't
off.
see it.
Yeah. I ain't gonna
Can I
be.
get a mic check, man?
Yes, sir.
Say your name.
Tawanda Murray. 1, 2.
Tawanda Murray.
Yes. Tawanda Murray. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Don't move that chair.
I'm saying, but it's.
Okay, you look at me, the camera's gonna look at you.
Okay.
You see, and my camera's gonna look at me, and they're gonna put it all together.
Okay.
But your whole thing is to deal with me.
Yes, sir.
That's the only thing you have to do, and speak up. You speak as loud as you
Okay.
hear me speak. You understand what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm glad you could be with us today. I
Glad
appreciate
to
you
have me.
coming
It's
back.
God.
Mhm.
It's just God.
This is going to be a good show, and you
Thank
can
you.
can do a lot with this show. Right, you see.
It's God. I've been waiting.
It's going to be it's going to be all over the world. You see, yeah, you got see this envelope has where we are located on the internet and et cetera, et cetera. So what we do is put all of these on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and et cetera, and then we expect you to tell your friends about it.
Okay.
Right.
I have one complex, so I have a weakness.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is I am redeemed.
Recovery.
It's recovery.
Yeah.
The influence of substance abuse in the lives of Miss Tawana Murray. And of course we have Miss Tawana Murray to talk about I am recovery. And getting away from substance and drug abuse. And Miss Murray, let me tell you how delighted we are to have you here because I think that the topic that we're talking about has quite a bit to do with what is going on in society today. And what we want you to do is to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences, and then we'll get into your recovery. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Okay. My name is Tawana Murray. I'm from Shelbyville, Tennessee, and I grew up there as a child. At the age of 18, I moved out of town to go do some modeling. But during school, I did all the academics, cheerleading, homecoming, basketball, and all those things. By that time, I found out that I had done it all. So I was searching for something else. So I made a wrong turn to the other side of town where drug abuse was present. And then about a month later, I realized that wasn't the life I wanted. But I already had addictive behavior. So I got into that struggle, and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, to a treatment center to try and pursue a way out of it. And I would go up and back down, up and down. And finally, I realized that it was real, that it wasn't something that I could fight on myself. So I had to begin searching for a way out, and that became going to being in treatment. But I realized also that treatment it was just a holding cell for me to get instructions, and I had to find out how to live life on life's terms, and that is from the absence of drugs itself. Yes.
And so in a real sense, you met drug abuse at 18 years of age?
At 18 years of age, I tried it. And yes, sir. And I left there, and then it became a recreational thing. We just did it on recreations. Then it became using when you were happy, when you were sad, when you were mad, when you were glad. So I stopped, and then at the age of 26, it became just a little bit more familiar. And I battled it for 26, and then I moved here I moved to a treatment center here in Nashville, and I got some education information on it, but I didn't follow through with it. That was just it. I didn't do everything that I needed to do.
Well, when you talk about your introduction to drugs and substance abuse, did you meet drugs and substance abuse the same way that most people generally? Why don't you give us some ideas in terms of how young people generally become involved in dealing with drugs and some of the reasons for their involvement?
As I say, it was me and some of my friends. How it began with us is it was just recreational. We were just out, and we decided we went out of town somewhere, and it was present. So we all tried it, and we managed to maintain that day. But at the same time, everybody's behavior is not the same. So I had addictive behavior in that situation. So I fought to get out of it. And like I say, I would use, and I would, and I would, and I would, and I would, and I would. And I knew then that it was a force that was beyond something that I could control. And then after the first time that I went to treatment, when I came back out and I fell again, my thought was, this is the way my life is going to be. Because I wasn't educated on it until I went and found what the circumstances are, how your brain level works, and all the things that go into it. But it's easy to fall into because it was like doing what my peers done, and that's how a lot of people fall into substance abuse is by your peers. Family members sometimes will just say, here you go. Like some of them say, well, here, go like this for me. You go light it, and then you're addicted to it. It becomes in your system, and that's a craving that you desire to have.
Would it be something comparable to tobacco addiction or anything like that? It's much stronger than tobacco addiction to deal with drugs.
No, I would say tobacco addiction is an addiction too. As I say, that's why I say I am recovering from a lot of things. Tobacco is too, but the thing for the drugs, it enters into your mind, it alters your mind. And when your mind is altered, it seems like there's no fight. So you have to do what it does to have abstinence from that.
And so from what I understand, you've got a program. You've been working for the longest in terms of creating a program of study in a real sense to deal with individuals who happen to have had the same situation that you're now faced with. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take our first commercial break. Okay. And then we're going to come back and we're going to devote the next 8 minutes to you talking about the program that you have and how you think that this program might be able to help other individuals who might find themselves in the same situation that you're in, and even if it's the kind of program you think that it can be more widely used.
Yes, sir.
You see, this is what we want you to talk about, because I think that you indicated earlier that you had a program that you've been trying to deal with, and that you think that you need more support.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that if you give us the kind of information that our audience is looking for this morning, you might be able to find more support for that. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take our first commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. But that's essentially, so we're going to give you an opportunity to talk about your program.
Okay.
And whatever you think that you've been trying to push it with other folks, push it with me today. Okay. You see, and then after that, we'll have 10 minutes. And then we'll determine what else we want to talk about in relation to what we've already said. Okay. But I think the information that you gave me, I appreciate that.
No problem, sir.
Thank you. I think I feel a little better now. And so you've got 8 minutes. I'll just to Wanda Murray.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I am
Recovery.
Okay, and substance and drug and substance abuse. That's the colon I put behind it. And you've got a program that's called I Am Recovery.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what I want you to talk about during this 8-minute segment, in terms of how that program came to you and et cetera, and how you feel that you can help other folks, and some examples of what you've already been able to do. In other words, this is your opportunity to sell.
To sell, yes,
sell this program.
Yes,
if you got something to sell, then
Yes,
this is time, especially since nobody's here but you.
Okay.
And this is your program, okay? I Am Recovery. It'll be
Recovery.
all right. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Tawana Murray, and she's the author of a program called I Am Recovery, Drug and Substance Abuse, and she's got a lot of information in reference to the challenges that young people and most people have in terms of dealing with drug and substance abuse. And Ms. Murray, let's give you an opportunity to talk about the program that you have, I Am Recovery, and to give us some idea as to how it's structured and how folks might be able to buy into the kind of program that you have.
Okay. The I Am Recovery program come about because through my life I had some struggles. I placed my kids with my mom. I gave up on everything that I had. I would work sometimes, try to go to college, up and down battles. And within that, I was hiding within myself. And I knew that there had to be a way to find somewhere to find a way out. Most people look down on people in recovery, but you know, if you don't know what it is, then you won't know how to structure the thing itself. So I would take information. I went to several treatment centers, and as I say, I had to realize it was a safety net for me, because I didn't feel confident enough in myself. So I went inside to grab a hold to what I needed to do. I ended up going. I've been to jail. You know, I went in there and I'm like, God, you got to show me what to do. How can I do this? So I began studying and reading and studying. But also when I came out, I realized that I had to go to one place for one thing, one place to another thing. I wasn't dealing with my inner self. I wasn't, they had put me on medication. All those things, you go from one spot to the other, and it was just like it was caving me in. I was wanting to throw the towel in. So I began to put different things together as I went to different places, got different information. I networked the information together. So in last November, I got down with myself, and I wrote the program I Am Recovery. I Am Recovery entails different aspects of how to recover: self-worth, self-esteem, your boundaries, journaling, codependency, let's see, just different aspects of how to get back to within yourself. Also, you have to have somebody to be accountable to, someone that you can call. Like say in recovery, they say have a sponsor. If it's not a sponsor, let it be a friend. Let someone know when you're feeling bad. You know, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Those things cause you to downfall. But I have to check myself daily, even today, to know that recovery is real. It's real, but it's also doable. It's doable. It's just a way out of it. So the curriculum, it's a curriculum, and it has, like I said, we do the step studies. We do spirituality. It entails inventorying yourself, self-worth, like I say, self-esteem, how to learn to love yourself. That's the main thing. Your family, because like I said, my family was where I didn't think, I thought if I was out of their lives that it would be fixed. No, I destroyed them because I wasn't in their lives. So what with my absence, that left my responsibilities on my mother. But by the grace of God, we made it through that. Today, as I say, I'm well and I'm whole. I do a recovery meeting at one of the institutions here, which works. I'm able to share about that. But without someone behind you, without somebody showing you or leading you or believing in you. But first of all, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that the program works, because it does. AA, I'll give it all the credit in the world. The treatment centers, they're good, but you can't stay in there forever. So you have to find a way to grab a hold. And by grabbing a hold, what I done was I put this program together, and I believe it works because it's all the things that have kept me clean and sober today.
And so in a real sense, you're using your life as an example of an individual who has had some real substance abuse problems. But I would imagine that one of the most important considerations is to admit that you've had the problem or that you have the problem. How does that come about in terms of an individual?
Really, they say you have to hit rock bottom before you know that it's real. 70% of the people have to go that way. Some people make it out, but at the same time, you have to admit that there's something wrong. You can't fix it. If something's not broken, you won't fix it. When I realized, like, I'd go to college, I'd drop out, I'd work, I'd stop. You know, just all the things that were up and down battles let me know that that's not how stable people live. You know, you can look around within yourself and within your family and see the structure. And like I say, destruction comes when you're not whole within yourself. But the main thing is asking for help. And when you ask for help, there are all kind of, that's why I moved to Nashville. Nashville has plenty opportunities. There are so many people, so many entities that are willing to bring people up. Even homelessness, you know, all of those things fall into that. Most of the things that happen with drug addiction usually comes from another situation happening, and then it all falls into place. You're homeless, so you give up. You don't have a job, so you give up. You need medication, you can't afford it, so you give up. All of these things. But the major structure is, I love Nashville because Nashville provides those opportunities, but you got to be willing to go out there and find them and ask for help.
And so it's an individual's desire that in a real sense helps to overcome addiction, and anything else that is added to it is simply a supplement to the individual's desire. And so if an individual does not wish to be clean, they cannot be clean. No matter what they say, and they've got to have a psychological. Are you saying that they have to have a psychological understanding, and that this is what I have to do, and be able to stick to that? Is that it?
That's exactly it. You have to have a psychological change. And I used to say, "Oh Lord, I want to change. I want to change. Help me change. Help me change." The change was there, but I had to follow through with it. Every time that I went back into substance abuse, it wasn't because the change wasn't there. It was because I was changing what I was doing. As long as I followed through on the path of what I needed to do, then it works. That's why they say it works if you work it, and that's the honest truth. But you can't work it unless you fix the problem, and that is within yourself. I tried it for my kids, for my parents, for my friends, for the church. None of that worked until I got me fixed. But you can't help anyone until you help yourself.
And so it's an individual decision that has to be made, and I would imagine that that's like anything else. Whether you're dealing with the ability to try to achieve or whatever it is, it has to first come from a decision that an individual has to make, and unless he or she makes that decision to do that, then it can never be done.
Correct. That's correct. You have to. That's the number one thing in the principles and the solutions. That's the number one. Admitting that there is a problem. Admitting that there's a problem. And once you admit it, then you begin. Then everything begins to open up. Yeah, because you free yourself. It's kind of like being in the closet. When you're in the closet, you can't get in the air unless you come out. And once you come out of it, everything falls into place.
And so when we talk about that, what impact does substance abuse have? And that's what we want to do. We're going to make some statements in reference to that, and when we come back, we'll have a 10-minute segment dealing with the impact on families and on societies. But substance abuse has a greater impact upon others around you in a real sense than it has upon on you. And even though they might not be involved with drugs or substance, your involvement really impacts them as if they ought to or they should have been involved. Is that what we're saying? And what we will do, I think we're getting ready for our second commercial break, Ms. Murray, and what we'll do, you'll have about 10 minutes to talk about the aspects of the family and society and et cetera, some of those things that will help other folks overcome addiction. And so we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Talk about that's this, and so I'll just introduce this as I am recovery, you drugs and substance abuse, and I'll introduce that third segment, and then we'll have 10 minutes and anything that you want to talk about, because you know what you need to say in order to make people familiar with your program and want to become a part of your program. And if you've got some way that you lay it out, that is, you've got a classroom situation, they have to, what should an individual do if they wish to become involved in your particular program? 1, 2, 3, 4. Just that's 10 minutes, and so that'll be the beginning of what we talk about. How can an individual become involved in I Am Recovery? Okay?
Because I started out doing a lot of volunteering, which I volunteer now with I do volunteering for NAMI, Room in the Inn. I do a lot of volunteering.
Yeah, well, that's what I want. Yeah, just bring all that in.
Yeah,
you see, and if you
volunteering is where it begins. And you volunteer your time. As I say, I volunteer to go to the prisons and speak with the ladies, because I know what it's like. I know it can be done. You know, I used to.
Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Miss Murray, Mr. Tawana Murray, and she's giving us some information in reference to a program that she has developed dealing with drugs and substance abuse called I Am Recovery. And so, Miss Murray, let's give you an opportunity during the last 10 minutes that we have here to tell our audience about this particular program and how this program might be different from any other program. And if individuals would like to know more about this particular program, then how they might be able to get in touch with you or somebody who can represent you. Let's talk about it from that perspective. Okay.
I Am Recovery, as I say, is a curriculum of recovery. It could be used as an individual program. It could be used as a student program or whatever, but the basis of it is to let everyone know the outlooks and the inputs on recovery. When I was out there, as I say, I placed my children with my mom, and I went on to do different things. I tried to work and couldn't do any of that, but because I wasn't fulfilling the things that I needed to fulfill, life on life's terms is what I was not doing. I was running instead of dealing with the things. So the curriculum itself, as I say, it deals with inventorying yourself. It deals with family issues. It deals with learning to look for a job, learning to be educated, learning to ask for help, all those things right there. As I say, I went to several treatment centers, but I had to go like 7 different places to get 7 different outlooks of help. So what I done was I put the whole curriculum together as one. It entails everything that the spirituality, the spiritual awakenings, the the minutes, the promises. Dealing with, like I say, dealing with yourself is the main issue, which is I say. But when you deal with it in a whole, finding out in recovery that you're not by yourself, but also finding out the impact that it causes your family. As I say, you think that you're out there alone, but you're not. You may leave your friends, you may leave your children, you leave a job, you have people wondering where you are and how you are without knowledge of that. But once they get out there, it involves everybody. It involves the community, because if you don't go to your job, then they need to find somebody else. If you're not with your kids, there's somebody else that has to step in for you. But as I say, once you get out there and you ask for help, you can find it. I Am Recovery, there's a website for that, which I'll leave the website address for that. But it can be reached, and I don't mind sharing. As I say, I do a lot of volunteering work. Volunteering is the best way to stay together within yourself and within the community and helping others.
Say that.
Volunteering, it is volunteering. I would walk, when I first started trying to get help, I walked from East Nashville to South Nashville to volunteer to fold clothes, because I did not want that old lifestyle again. And I just continued to volunteer. And as each day go by, as they say, it's one a day. I try to live for the future, and I try to live for the past. But I have to get up every day and set a goal, because it's not about having my presence felt. I want now to have my absence. I don't want to have my presence known. I want to have my absence felt. Letting myself know that I did something to help somebody today. And I'm just not, most people, when you're out there, it's like a selfish program. But when you really decide that you want to help, you have all the desires to help someone else. And so that's what I do today. I look for ways to help someone else. That's why I put this program, the curriculum together, so that others can be seen and to know that the recovery is possible.
In other words, there's a psychological thing in reference to how you feel in reference to somebody else, and giving, and that kind of psychological thing that helps to promote what you're trying to do. That is to help promote your ability to be able to move beyond drugs and substance abuse. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying, because at one point in time I was, which when anything is necessary, please do. If you got cancer, you got to go to the cancer doctor. If you got a backache, you need to go to, whatever it takes is what you got to do. So at one point in time I was taking medication, and I felt like it helped me, but then again I had bad days and good days. But once I figured out, once you learn to look at yourself, self-inventory is the number one thing. Look at what it does to your family. Look at what it does to your kids. Look at life passing you by. When you get to that point right there, today I am free of all of those things, the medication, everything, because I deal with me every day. If something upsets me, I gotta take a look back. Oh, what part does this play on me? Because everything starts in the mind. They say, oh, I relapsed. You got to think about going over it to get that drug before you actually use it. So it's a mind-altering substance, but it's also a mind-altering turnaround.
And so anything that you can do in order to look within yourself in a real sense, and determine that it is your responsibility. You got yourself into this situation. Now you ought to be able, now you certainly could expect help, and other people will help you, but they cannot help you if you're not willing to help yourself. I've heard that. That's a statement that I've heard people say, that you can't help anybody until they're willing to help themselves. Would you apply that to what you're doing here?
Oh yes, I mean, I had people pulling me up. I had one of my friends say, well, everywhere I went, it would be like a nuisance at first. Here he comes trying to tell me, well, get it right, get it right. And I heard it, and I go back to that. But no one can do it. You have to do it for yourself. And it is possible to do. And as I say, every day is still not a good day. Being clean and sober does not just make normal problems go away. But it gives me the ability to deal with them in a normal sense, in a sense that it's going to be okay anyway. As long as I don't pick up, I'm good. That's what it's about. As long as you don't pick up.
What do you mean pick up?
As long as you don't use. Because I found out there's not a problem big enough to use. Those excuses, oh, well, so-and-so happened, or this, somebody said this, that's not, those are excuses. Those are excuses. So.
And you think that a large number of folks generally come up with some kind of justification in terms of why they are in the situation that they're in. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, sir. I justified it for years. Oh, I did this. Oh, I lost that. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. Those were all excuses. You know, and then within yourself. But the major factor, the substance abuse brings a lot of depression, and depression will have you wanting to hide out, wanting not to do anything. But when you see those things coming, it's time to go to a meeting. It's time to call a sponsor, and that's one of the main things. I have a young lady I sponsor today. I started out with 4. I'm down. I have 1 today. She's been with me over a year. And we do the step studies together. We read together. We fellowship together. We call. We talk. We share. When I have a problem, I call her when she has one. She calls me. AA meetings. I say find a meeting somewhere. If it's, you need to find a church, find a way out because you know yourself better than anybody knows you. When you know that you're not feeling the way you should feel, it's time to go and admit to someone, hey, I'm feeling this way, and desire for help.
You know, I'm reminded, Ms. Murray, that when we talk about love and et cetera, that's essentially what you're expressing now, which is to say that when you meet an individual, you have to show love and they can show love. But when we recognize that there are three elements of love: respect, understanding, goodwill, which is to say that if you can bring these ideas into your life, that is, you want to respect everybody, you want to love everybody, you want to understand everybody, and you want to have goodwill to everybody. And I think that that's the definition of love. And if you have that, then it comes off, and other folks can help you in terms of whatever your situation might be. Do you find that to be true in terms of what you're doing?
I found that to be very true. Maya Angelou made a statement one time, something that she shared, and it's true, that God brings rainbows even in the storms, which means somebody can tell you, you can be having a bad day, somebody can smile. That's a rainbow to you. Even in the midst of storms, there are times, but you have to look beyond your situation. And one of the quotes that I love more than any quote I've heard is Helen Keller. When they asked her what would be worse than being blind, she said having sight and no vision. Because if you don't look out and see that you can make it, that there's another way out, then you're always going to be there. Even a blind person can still see because it begins in your heart and in your mind. Once you learn to love yourself, everything else follows naturally. So recovery is possible.
And so, Ms. Murray, you think that it is possible to replicate your program and do your program, and folks who are involved. Now, where are you carrying this program to? I mean, who have you tried to influence in terms of making this a program that people can come to class and deal with, and et cetera? How are you doing that?
I've shared the program with drug court in another town, a small town from here, and it passed the drug court system. They overviewed it. So the program is passable and it's doable, and it can be on anywhere. Anybody that would like to utilize the program, I have no problem with sharing it with them, because I know it saves lives, because it saved my life.
And so you've got an internet connection in reference to this particular program?
Yeah, I have a website.
What's your website?
The website is www.tawanda552.st@gmail.com. That's tawanda552.st@gmail.com.
Now, if they search that, can they find this without your web page address?
No, we're changing the website now because we're putting a curriculum, adding the extra curriculum to it. But for right now, this is how they can get the information.
But this is a program that you want people to become familiar with, and that if they become familiar with, they can become more involved.
Correct.
And that it might be that key.
Yes, sir.
That's necessary. And let me thank you, Ms. Murray, for bringing that excellent information. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning. Nashville, and that'll be an 8-minute segment, you see, and we'll talk about that. You say what you want to about domestic violence.
Okay.
2-minute break. Then we'll come back with 10 minutes, you see, and then back and forth and et cetera. And it will be between you and Pastor Walker to give me the information and et cetera. Is that right?
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Okay.
Are you gonna put that on Facebook? Okay, good. I'll show you. Wow, this camera covers up all the bad things on it.
Oh, Pastor Walker, look here. Let me give you that. You see, and I think that'll help you in terms of finding out a lot of other different things. I tell you, let me use it for today. When I get through with it, I want you to take it with you. Okay? Okay.
And put them on weather and traffic.
Okay, Ms. Kimbrough. All right. I don't know, Pastor. Let's see. Let's put Ms. Kimbrough down here on this end, and Pastor Walker, you sit right here with me because you're sponsoring this lady. You brought Ms. Kimbrough.
You want me to sit right
Yes,
here?
ma'am. Yes, so that he can say something about you before we get to you. You see.
Yeah, Pastor Walker, we go way back.
Uh-huh.
One of my churches.
Ma'am, bring this up.
All right. Yes, so when we get through today, Pastor, I
Elizabeth.
want you to take this.
You get a picture of me
with you.
Pastor
Now, this
Walker.
got all of the
Quick, I'm just gonna tuck this on the
information
jacket.
about these shows and where
Thank
some, all
you.
these are Saturday, Sunday mornings or whatever. And so this is, so we're going to call this domestic violence in Nashville, okay? And so what we're going to do, Ms. Kimbrough, I'll introduce the show, and then he'll give me some information about about background, education, and experience, and then he'll tell me something about you and why he decided to bring that you should be with us this morning, and then you can talk about yourself, and that'll give us 6 minutes.
You want to talk a little bit about my educational background and
Education and
experience?
experience. That's what we're dealing with in this 6 minutes.
Okay.
Background, education, experience. We're not dealing with domestic violence yet,
Okay.
as such, you see. And we just want everybody to know, the two of you, you see.
Hey, you just-
And
Just tuck it away. and-
so we call this domestic violence in Nashville. Pastor K. Walker and Miss R. Kimbrough. I understand
Kimbrough.
that R stands for Robin. Is
R
that right?
stands for Robin.
Okay, very good. And so what we'll do, I'll introduce the show, Domestic Violence in Nashville. Our guest is Pastor K. Walker and Miss Robin Kimbrough, Miss R. Kimbrough. And then we'll have Pastor Walker to give us some information in reference to Miss Kimbrough. That is, some statements. In other words,
Okay.
why did you bring this woman by here for us today? And he'll
Okay.
make those kind of statements, and that'll allow you to, by the end, moving into the 4th or 5th minute, to talk about your background as you make some statements in reference to that. And then we'll have a 2-minute break. Then we'll have a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and deal with an 8-minute segment, and then we'll have another 2-minute break, and we'll come back and deal with a 10-minute segment.
Okay.
Dealing with domestic violence in Nashville. And you tell us anything whatever you want to say about it. I don't know anything at all about domestic
We'll
violence.
start ground zero,
Oh, well,
dynamics,
that's where you start.
statistics here in Nashville.
Any way
What does
you-
it look
yes.
like for men and women to be
Any way
abused?
you want to, any way
Right.
you think that you can deal with it, because anything that you say is helpful to me. in
And you'll
reference-
ask questions too.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I
Okay.
just tell you, tell me about domestic violence.
You get to do all the job.
Yeah,
And
what-
how do you want me to do? I continuously look at you?
Just look at me. Just
Okay.
look at me. When
Okay.
you're talking.
I think I met you one time at TSU,
Well,
and I think I mean that was years and years ago.
That was what semester?
I think we were in Well, did you have an office in the women's building at some point?
I did.
Yeah, that's where I met you. Oh my gosh, that was just years ago.
Yes, that certainly was. That was back in I guess it must have been.
That was before I had children, so
That's
it had
right.
been after
And
1995.
yeah, I had an office in the women's building
Yeah.
one time.
I met you.
I was
then.
working for Dr. Humphreys at that time, you know.
You right?
Yeah, Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, I got one more show after this one, right? Wrap him up, huh?
Okay, thanks. All right.
All right, we're ready when they get ready, and so just keep that chair. Don't move that chair. The
Okay.
cameras follow the chair. you
Oh,
see?
okay.
And
I want to stay like this.
yeah, that'll be good. That'll be
Okay.
good. No problems at all.
Thank you for having me. Pastor Walker called me yesterday, and he said, "I know it's last minute." I said, "Oh, I used to go to IMF during this time, so this is fine."
Let's tuck this a little bit more. Of course, you're probably not going to see it against your black dress, but just
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. So this is great.
Give me a mic check, please.
I'm Pastor Kelvin L. Walker, born somewhere around somewhere.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is domestic violence in Nashville. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the topic of domestic violence in Nashville, Pastor Kay Walker and Miss Robin Kimbrough. Pastor Walker has been with us on many, many occasions, and I'm sure that he really doesn't need any introduction. I think he calls himself Kevin Walker or Kelvin Walker, but he is Kay Walker to us here at the studio, and we're delighted to have Pastor Walker. Pastor, why don't you make some statements in reference to your background, education, experience, and then introduce Ms. Kimbrough, and she'll give us an opportunity to sort of wind down this particular topic here.
All right, well, once again, Dr. Haney, thank you for having us on the show this morning. My name is Kelvin Walker, born right here in Nashville, Tennessee. I went to the public school system in Nashville, Tennessee. Didn't make it all the way through. As everybody know, I had a negative background back then and was kicked out of all the public schools in the state of Tennessee. And nobody would let me in. So I got in some trouble somewhere down the line, and Judge Richard Jenkins thought it was necessary to send me to the military as opposed to incarcerating me in the juvenile court system. I had shot an individual when I was like age 15. And I went in there, went to the Navy, got out of the Navy. Back then you could go into the military, didn't have to have a high school diploma. But when I got out of the Navy, I went to Opportunities Industrialization Center, OIC. I got a GED, through that program there. And from there, I embarked on some studies out at Tennessee State University. I had a pattern and design in mind to be a fashion designer. And of course, all during that period of time, I was addicted to drugs all through the time I was in college until it finally took its toll on me and got the best of me and just sent me spiraling off into the streets, where I ended up committing crimes and incarcerated in the state prison system here in the state of Tennessee. Been out of there been away from the life of crime for some 30-something years now. I've been drug and alcohol free for 30 years. As of August the 24th, 2016, God set me free, called me into ministry. I'm now pastor in the Hands of God Christian Church, located 1545 11th Avenue North. I'm just glad to be here today and have with me a dear friend that I met some years ago on the ministry trail, and that's attorney Robin Kimbrough, and I'll let her tell you about who she is.
Let's talk about your background, education, some of your experiences, Ms. Kimbrough.
Well, I am delighted to be here this morning to share with you. I am a native of Lexington, Kentucky. And I did very well in high school and really wanted to go to an HBCU when I went to college. And I did. I went to the great Fisk University. And I graduated from Fisk with honors and went on to attend TMurray Law School. I completed law school in 3 years in 1995, and I was licensed to practice in Tennessee the same year. My first job was with the Tennessee Attorney General's office, and I did criminal appeals for the state of Tennessee. So in other words, when someone was prosecuted at the lower level, if the defendant chose to appeal, I would defend the appeal on behalf of the state. And I argued these cases before the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals. Then I went into private practice. And all this time I was running from a call to ministry and ended up at Vanderbilt Divinity School and answering that call to ministry at Payne Chapel AME Church. So I went to Vanderbilt as the Kelly Miller Smith Scholar. So I was really thankful for that, especially being a second career student, and I didn't have to pay tuition, so that was great. So so I was / lawyer / minister after I got my eldest orders. I did lay off from the practice of law so that I could finish up my divinity degree. And then after that, I went to work for the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, and I prosecuted dependent and neglect cases. And by that time, I got married and had 2 wonderful children, Adrian Jr. and Elizabeth. And I stopped working at the Department of Children's Services and started pastoring a full-time church called Scott United Methodist Church, and I'm still there now in Shelbyville. So I went from being AME to United Methodist, not a hard sell and not a far jump or cry from my theological context. So I stayed home with my children, getting them school age. And then I went on to work for the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. And so from that job, I've gathered a lot of experience and knowledge and information on issues related to domestic violence and sexual assault. And it wasn't until I began to work at the Coalition that I did not realize the dynamics of this issue and the impact this issue had on the lives of people, especially women. During that time when I was staying home with the children prior to going to the Coalition, I worked as a magistrate, so I granted orders of protection part-time.
Okay, and we're going to take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break, Ms. Kimbrough, and then we'll be back and talk again about some additional information. Anything that I might do. If you got some information, just put it on out. Now, this is the 8-minute segment.
Okay.
We're going to start, as a matter of fact, let's start this 8-minute segment. Let's pick up with you on this 8-minute segment. When we come back, I'll introduce you, and you pick up again. Okay. And talk for about 3 minutes, and then he's going to feed off what some of the information you're talking about, and he'll do it about 3.5 or 4 minutes, and then I'll end that segment, and then we'll get ready for our 10-minute segment. But when we come back, we're going to start with you. Okay. Okay?
All right.
And just start, this is domestic violence now. You can start in terms of
I pick up from my job, working
Yeah.
with the coalition, and
Yeah, that
training
kind
that
of
I do, and
information.
working with judges and magistrates.
Okay, all
On
dealing
training.
with domestic violence and et cetera.
Yes.
And he'll be able to buy in with what you're saying and give his interpretation and his statements in reference to domestic violence. And I'll be able to end that particular segment for,
Okay.
for the morning. Then we'll come back for 10 minutes after that.
Okay.
That's
Talking about this napkin right here? Yeah.
Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Kay Walker and Miss Robin Kimbrough. Miss Kimbrough, as an attorney, let's see if we can start off with you, Miss Kimbrough, and have you to give some information in reference to domestic violence in Nashville. Sort of give us some statistical information, or however you wish to approach it, and talk for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then Pastor Walker is going to buy into some of the things that you're talking about and make some statements, and then I'll be able to close us off for that second segment.
Wonderful. Domestic violence is the #1 call for the Metro Police Department. And these statistics concerning Nashville probably reflect national statistics that 1 out of 4 women will be a victim of domestic violence. Tennessee is ranked 9th in the nation of women who are murdered by their intimate partners. And Tennessee has been in the top 10 for as long as I worked at the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. I'm actually no longer at the coalition, but I am the president of the Nashville Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And this organization is a grassroots task force for anyone to join, churches, agencies working with domestic violence victims to come and raise awareness about domestic violence. So as I was saying before, when I started working at the Tennessee Coalition, I had no idea about the impact of domestic violence on people, especially women. A couple of things that I've learned: that domestic violence is not about anger. Domestic violence is about power and control. So I recommend to everyone to get a power and control wheel, because on the power and control wheel, it talks about or gives a visual of different types of abusive behavior. And abusive behavior is not always violent. Some abusive behavior is verbal or emotional abuse, like name calling or telling the person they'll never be anything. There's also financial abuse. Maybe the abusive partner will not allow the victim to work, or make the victim work and bring home all the money, forcing the victim to have children or not to have children. So I kind of couch those kind of actions as sexual control. So making the victim do something that he or she does not want to do sexually. So sexual control, sexual violence, all that's a part of domestic violence behavior, and it's about power and control. The other thing, so it's not about anger. I could get angry right now with Pastor Kay Walker here, but it doesn't mean I have to hit him or call him bad names. That is behavior that tears down his character, and it's a way for me to take control over him. And men and boys are also victims of domestic violence and sexual violence. The other piece is that alcohol is not the cause of domestic violence or getting higher drugs. The person is usually already violent. We're about to enter into the holiday seasons, believe it or not, Dr. Haney, and domestic violence increases during the holiday season. So the Metro Police Department will see a spike of domestic violence Thanksgiving and Christmas time. The other piece is that domestic violence does kill. I did not believe that when first. I really didn't understand the issue before I started getting involved with this work at the level that I am now, that batterers will kill their victims and will kill the victims' children. So if you were, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Medea's Family Reunion. It's a great display of domestic violence. One of the characters starts to abuse his partner after they get engaged. At that point, he feels like he can take control over her, like, I got her now. And then he starts abusing her with name calling. Then he starts pushing and shoving. And when she decides to leave, she tried to sneak out of the apartment. He tried to kill her and push her out of the window. Then she ends up staying, but at the end she ends up leaving. But I want to warn everybody who has seen this movie that throwing a hot pot of grits may get you an aggravated assault. But when victims end up killing their batterers, we have failed victims. So it is important that we wrap our arms around victims and give them supports and safe places to go. Victims, a lot of people say, well, why does she stay? Why does she stay in this relationship? But there are many reasons why victims stay. The main reason why victims stay is because of fear. Because just like in that Medea Family Reunion illustration, as soon as victims decide to leave, the batterer may ante up control, may start to become physically abusive, and then ended up becoming even more lethal with using firearms and all kinds of weapons to let the victim know that, hey, I'm going to kill you. Okay? And batterers sometimes harm pets and threaten children so they can stay in these relationships. So they stay for many reasons, and housing is another. If the domestic violence shelters are filled here in Nashville, and we do have two, the YW and Morning Star. If those shelters are filled, where's the victim going to go? And she's been financially controlled. So there are a lot of reasons why victims may stay in these relationships.
And Pastor Walker.
You know, you learn a lot, you know, by listening. You may sometimes think you know a lot about, you know, the domestic violence situation and things that goes along with that, you know, being a victim of domestic violence, meaning that on March the 24th, 2015, right the day before my birthday, my daughter was murdered in a domestic violence situation. And, you know, there was no signs of it. There was no signs that she was in a situation that even had any hint of domestic violence, abuse or anything like that involved in that situation. Never said anything to me about it or anything like that. And for this to happen, you know, it was just totally devastating. And then to hear you say, well, you know, it's not about the anger, it's about the power and control. And as I look at this situation, and this trial has not even gone to court yet, it's in the process. It's almost time for it to happen within the next couple of weeks. But the power and control thing, and I see a lot of that now, based upon the guy's testimony and everything like that, in terms of him trying to make my daughter have a conversation with him when she wasn't willing to have a conversation, and how she attempting to leave her place. This is her place. And she's attempting to leave, and then he takes her keys from her and prohibits her from leaving. You know, and then of course he's on the other side of this thing. He's trying to play like he's the victim. You know.
Right.
Okay, and of course I think Ms. Kimbrough, the information that you gave and what Pastor Walker has given sort of prepares us for this final segment, and that will give us an opportunity to have about 10 minutes to work out perhaps some solutions or whatever, because I think to talk about it and without coming to any kind of conclusion is not that helpful. And so when we come back, we'll have 10 minutes and we'll start with you and we'll have you to deal with that. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. So you talk about it now.
Don't share all the information.
You put all the information, and it's not on tape. Then I walk away, and I'm not the only one that get it because I didn't get much of it. You see.
So who's yours prosecutor?
Katie
Miller.
Yeah. I don't know.
She's going for blood, huh?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not all that pleased with what they're doing. I sent her a letter and let her know that.
Oh, okay.
They came out to the house the other day, her and Susan Tucker Smith, talked and gave me a copy of the written transcript, but I'd already viewed the tape his testimony. It's like 3 hours, interview with the detectives and stuff like that. And he's trying to flip it because, I actually picked him up that night and took him down to the jail to turn himself in,
Right, right.
And now he's trying to turn the whole thing around.
Are you a witness?
I will be testifying. Yeah. I wasn't there. I'm a witness in terms of having called him on the phone, talked to him while I was en route to pick him up, and then took him downtown and Herbert had sent him. After that, I even went down to the jail and visited him so I can get real clarification on the story. If he
Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Kay Walker and Attorney Kimbrough in reference to domestic violence in Nashville. And Attorney Kimbrough, let's pick up with you and to have you during this last 10 minutes inform our audience in terms of how you feel in reference to what they ought to know about domestic violence. Let's do it from that perspective, and of course Pastor Walker will join in and help you, and then we'll end the show for today.
I really appreciate Pastor Walker sharing the story about his victim. One thing that he said that really struck me was that he did not know what his daughter was going through and had no indicators. Batterers are really good about isolating their victims, number one, from their family and people that will support them. Number two, batterers are good at making victims think that they are not really being abused and that what's happening to them is their fault. And so victims are afraid to come forward to family. They're afraid they may be rejected by family. They're afraid that it may increase the violence because we don't know if the perpetrator said to Pastor Walker's daughter, if you tell anybody, I'm going to kill you. And this batterer killed his victim, and this victim knew that her batterer was capable of it. The other piece of this, victims know their batterers better than anyone else. They know what their batterer is capable of, and sometimes they don't share what's going on with them because they're trying to protect the family. So there are a lot of dynamics that go in there, especially if the situation is pretty lethal. So what I do want to share with your listening audience is don't victim blame. It is hard for victims to come forward if somebody's going to say to them, well, why don't you leave? Well, you shouldn't act like this with him, and you need to be a little more calm with him. You don't need to talk a whole lot with him, and you just need to be home on time, and you just need to not talk to anybody else just so that he or she can act a certain way. And so that creates in the victim's mind that I can control my batterer's behavior, and that is not true. We live in a victim-blaming society. So looking at the Vanderbilt rape case, a lot of people are blaming the victim. We cannot blame victims. We've got to hold perpetrators accountable for the behavior that they are doing instead of pointing the finger at the victim. The number two thing another thing I want your listening audience to know is that there is help out there available for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Number one, there is a legal document called an order of protection. An order of protection is available 24 hours a day here in Davidson County. And that's not true for all counties, okay? So Davidson County has Cadillac service where orders of protection are concerned. So an order of protection is a legal instrument that says to the perpetrator that you're to stay away from the victim and that you're not to engage in behavior like you did with the victim. It will prohibit the batterer from possessing